Said she's on her way. So,
Definitely was removed.
yes.
Okay.
Lorraine, where is this from?
Alice Sykes added in something.
It's an antique electronic module for Honeywell. Is that a 3-minute time? What do you think of all the track work? You see it?
No,
Oh, I thought you might see it from your house.
I don't see it. It's all
Torn
what's
up.
going on.
Did it start?
It's all torn up in big piles.
When did they start that?
Early today.
Okay, that's why.
Oh, you haven't been home yet? Well, when you get home, you'll get a big
Okay.
surprise. They finally started.
It's a big pile of old track sitting in.
Sorry, I thought you might have been home.
I did stop home, but I didn't notice it. You more work.
I can't wait to go see it. No, did you see it, Brian?
I have not. I was there
It's impressive.
a couple days ago, but there weren't, I think there's some summer machines there. Haven't decided yet. So,
I wanted to tell Dave that we recycle, we can say that we're recycling it all to make totes for third world countries. You know, keep their belongings dry.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Do they just regrind up the track?
No, it's good.
I mean, like the blacktop,
Oh, no.
you would take and you do a regrind and you'd use that for another spot. They do the same type of thing.
I'm gonna ask that question. I'll ask the question. Because it is just rubber. Right. I'll ask the question. Can't imagine it was a landfill.
Some playgrounds use that.
Yeah, I mean, that.
I think in the south, because,
Yeah.
yeah, I think in Florida, playgrounds have like.
Better than the rocks and stuff.
In my last school, all the playgrounds had that same surface. It's cushy.
Yeah.
The rubberized surface? Yeah. Rubber mulch?
Just had rocks. Just rocks. All rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with oaths of office for our re-elected board members. Mr. do you want the purple sheet from you?
Okay. I, David Demore of 915 South Perry Street, Johnstown, New York, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Pass it back this way.
I, Joelle Richardson of 107 Hammond Drive, Johnstown, New York, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
I will open the floor for nominations for the office of board president.
I nominate David Moore.
And is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
I, David Demore of 915 South Perry Street, Johnstown, New York, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education President according to the best of my ability. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which would be to open the floor for nominations for Vice President of the Board of Education. Do I have any nominees?
I would like to nominate Jennifer Small.
Okay. Second? I'll second.
I seconded too.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
I, Jennifer Swampole of 7 Brindle Avenue, Johnstown, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Board of Education Vice President according to the best of my ability.
All right, so we'll move on to the appointment of officers, starting with item 1, Superintendent of Schools, Administration of Oath of Office.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I, William Crankshaw of 601 South William Street, Johnstown, New York, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Superintendent of Schools according to the best of my ability. May I ask why there's or affirm in parentheses?
Some people don't want to swear in.
Swear.
If you do one or the other, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Oh, what's the old?
Interesting.
Wow.
Takes it to a whole new level. Okay, we'll move on to the appointment of school district clerk. So I'd like to get a motion to appoint Lorena Carpenter as the district clerk of the Greater Johnstown School District for the 2023-24 school year. Art, second. Marge? Any discussion? All those in favor? Squeak through.
Thank you. I, Lorena Carpenter of 494 Albany Bush Road, Johnstown, New York, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of District Clerk according to the best of my ability.
Next is the appointment of school district treasurer and chief accounting officer. I'd like a motion to appoint Kimberly Dopp as the school district treasurer and chief accounting officer of the Greater Johnstown School District for the 2023-24 school year. Jen, second. Will? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, next is the appointment of school district deputy treasurer. I'd like a motion to appoint Melissa Baker as the school district deputy treasurer of the Greater Johnstown School District for the 2023-24 school year at no additional compensation, and authorizing the bonding of the school district deputy treasurer. Art? Marge? Any discussion? All those in favor? Next is the appointment of school tax collector. I'd like a motion to appoint Deborah Colzer as school tax collector for the 23-24 school year at $25 per hour. Can I get a motion? Well, second? Jen? Any discussion? All those in favor? And then we have the appointment of school district claims auditor. I'd like a motion to appoint Lisa Levin as school district claims auditor for the 2023-24 school year at $35 per hour. Mark? Thank you. Second? Joel? Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, so we've got a lot of things that we've consolidated into this agenda as consent agenda items. So item D, annual appointments. I'm looking for a motion to approve items D1 through D41 as seen below. So as was mentioned to you at the last meeting, the hope was that you'd have an opportunity to review and confirm that everybody was comfortable with everything in the agenda. Does anybody wish to remove anything from this consent agenda item for individual discussion? Okay. Hearing none, can I get a motion? Art, second, Will. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, unanimous. Thank you. Next item is letter E, designations. Again, we will do a consent agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to approve items E1 through E6. Get a motion? Will, second?
Aye.
Joelle? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Next we have letter F, authorizations. This is to approve items F1 through F22 as seen below on the agenda. Do I get a motion? Will, second? Joelle? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. We have letter G, a motion to approve items G1 through G16.
Something at the item 15, the amount is going to have a note, or something in it to employ to discuss it separately.
15? Yeah, I mean, it's the board's pleasure, honestly. We left that blank because I have put a call into Dick Rose, who is the superintendent of PSECO, and we have yet to connect, but I thought the board might want to discuss the contract for PSECO, because that's an annual contract, unlike the other. And we can, I can talk more, or you tell me what you'd like to do.
I'd like to separate 14, 15, and 16.
So we will amend this item to approve items G1 through G13. Okay, so from G1 through G13, we have a motion to accept. Marge, second, Jen. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, item 14, New York State instruction contract for Wheelerville Union-Free School District students in grades 9 through 12. Motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to enter into a New York State Department of Education instruction contract with Wheelerville Union-Free School District commencing July 1st, 2023, whereby all or part of the children of school age in grades 9 through 12 residing in the Wheelerville School District shall be entitled to be taught in the Greater Johnstown School District, and the Wheelerville Union Free School District shall pay tuition in the sum of $2,601 for each such child so admitted into the Greater Johnstown School District for the 23-24 school year. Tuition rates for Wheelerville students in grades 9 through 12 are pursuant to an agreement between the districts as executed on February 8, 2021 for the period July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. Can I get a motion? Jen, second? Marge? Discussion?
Yes. So what is the cost currently to the taxpayer per student?
Per student?
Per student.
Per non,
Cost to the taxpayer per student, right? There's the tax levy, which is X, right, divided by the number of students, which is Y. That's how much it costs the taxpayer.
there's a rate for non-special education students, special education students, and then combined. And I don't have that particular data for that, the numbers.
Just looking at that.
But the state recommendation for tuition, I do have that for you. And what the state recommends that we charge for tuition.
But that's a lot less than the taxpayers are paying per student.
Not necessarily.
Sure, so.
We did a little research on this.
Sure, so part of how New York State runs the formulas to determine the appropriate tuition amount for students that are non-resident is how the rates in number 16 were developed. So the state takes all of our financial information that we report at the end of the year, and they come up with the appropriate tuition per child to cover what our costs are. And that for a 7 through 12, they're always a year behind. So this year's rates are based on our financials from last year. And they're estimating for regular ed 7 through 12 students to be about $4,354. And that amount is what the state has recognized through their formulas as the cost to educate a non-resident regular ed student in our district. And that's what we go by. So it's not necessarily a straight division by the levy, but how the state calculates the formulas based on the cost of educating a student in Johnstown based on our formulas that are established by the state.
If you go to the New York State report card, you're going to see a different number. You're going to see more like, it depends. You're going to see $13,000, $14,000 per student, but that is the expenditure per pupil.
Right, no, I was looking at one, we start with the tax levy, which is tax, like I said,
Straight
how much the
cost.
taxpayers pay.
Okay. Yeah.
And divide that by the number of students, I came up with a number of approximately 7K per student.
Well, the board can do what it likes to do, but the recommendation by the state of New York are the numbers that exceed number 16 for charging tuition. Not that the board couldn't charge more, because they could.
And a lot of times what you'll see is in the New York State report card, they embed all of the costs. So they take not only the instructional costs, but they also take the operational costs, including transportation costs. And so Wheelerville provides its own transportation. So that's all kind of separated out when they do the non-resident tuition. So that's why sometimes in 16, the way the state does the tuition rates, they really net it out. They take out any aid, they take out some of the other larger operational costs that the New York State report card reports on, because they use a different data set. So that's why we have $4,300.
So I think most schools will follow that recommended tuition rate, but the board is certainly willing or able to set their own rate for sure. When it comes to Wheelerville, I tried to explain, we already have a contract, so it's really not up for discussion unless we want to break that contract. But the contract goes through 2026, and so we have a percentage increase from year to year that was decided on, signed by President Talon in 21. So this is that rate right now for Wheelerville. But the numbers blank for the SECO, because I think that should be for board consideration. And then once you get to 16, you can certainly talk about how you want to go forward with tuition. I do not have a recommendation about the state recommendation.
And I think, it's important to mention, I know, there was some discussion last July about the tuition rates as well. And what we did confirm at that time, and reconfirmed this year, is that the enrollment for SECO and Wheelerville are in our enrollment numbers. So any state aid formula that takes enrollment as a factor to calculate our state aid, these students are factored into our enrollment. So there is a certain portion of our aid that we are receiving, in addition to the tuition that we charge.
Right, but we're getting aid for our students as well.
True.
Yes,
Absolutely.
correct.
Yep.
But the school district that they reside in is not getting aid based on the students they're sending here. But we have, this past year, we collected about almost $89,000 in tuition. So these are from private pay, so parent pay, have nothing to do with Wheelerville or Pacifico. Wheelerville was roughly half of that, about 43,000. We had 17 students. We had some CTC students also. Pacifico we only had one student, and that was the rate. So there's kind of your breakdown. And the year before was a little bit closer to $93,000. So we saw less, but you know, those classes are dynamic for Wheelerville and that sort of thing. So we had 10 parent pay less in 21, 22, 7 this past year. 18 from Wheelerville the year before. This year we had 17, and 3 from Pacifico the year before, and 1 this year. So that's a little bit dynamic, but I do value that relationship, and I think that we collect state aid. I think is important based on that.
Any other questions?
That's a tough question to ask, because if you're dividing just tax levy,
Just the cost, yeah, just what everybody's.
I have a problem with that as a taxpayer, because I'm also paying New York State taxes, not to mention federal taxes, you know, which also play into our budget. So if we start with tax levy, I think $7,000 is low, I think. Because this New York State report card, we might go on there sometime, their rates are much higher expense per pupil, but it's considering everything under the sun in that number. You just have to make a judgment call.
Can Pacifico students choose to borrow money?
I think their articulation agreement, Nicole, do you know at this point? I think their articulation agreement is certainly with Wells.
And I think brought all them too.
Pacifico, yeah. I know Lake Pleasant sending all of their students to Pearl. That was a choice they made. So I hate to lose those partnerships, you know, but Pacifico is pretty nominal.
I do have a question too. Is it my understanding that this rate has already been established when we voted last year for the period of July 2022 through June 2026? So we've already established the rate?
Yeah, the rate's already established.
Okay, I just wanted to make
It's a little redundant to have it here, but I think it's important that we set that and have that conversation. I've never opened a contract with the school district once we had a contract. I don't think it'd be viewed very positively, considering that they were also thinking about not having sending their kids here just a couple of years ago.
And I know we're not at 15, is there a rate that we paid last year that's?
We paid $2,200,
Or the, yeah.
$2,200, which was lower than Wheelerville. So I think there's some, I mean, personally, I just think there's room for discussion there for sure. I mean, you want to go with the full recommended rate of tuition for parent pay, or you want to go with something nearer to Wheelerville? You know.
From my perspective, I certainly understand where Art's coming from in this matter, but I think also value the relationship with Wheelerville. We've got an agreement in place, and I think there's a net benefit with the aid that we receive that I'm not quite ready to upset that apple cart. However, I do think as we approach the 2026 termination of that agreement, there might be an opportunity for us to reevaluate that status at that time.
Agreed.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor of the motion as read, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? Thank you very much. Item 15, New York State Education Department Instruction Contract for Pacifico Common School District students in grades 9 through 12. Motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to enter into a New York State Department of Education Instruction Contract with Pacifico Common School District commencing July 1st, 2023, whereby all or part of children of school age in grades 9 through 12 residing in the Pacifico School District shall be entitled to be taught in the Greater Johnstown School District, and the Pacifico School District shall pay tuition in the sum of, to be filled in, for each such child so admitted into the Greater Johnstown School District for the 2023-24 school year.
$2,601 would be the same as Wheelerville. And we could also table this to the August meeting if you prefer. So I can hear back from you.
I would like to table it until August, so that way we definitely have more information to go on, instead of just making a number now and then having something else come up when we have the discussion.
How many students does this affect?
We had one this year.
One student.
Yeah, so it wasn't very many. But also, they don't have a full-time superintendent at the school district that has no students. So they just have their residential jurisdiction. So they have to take care of all the students that live in there, but they don't actually have a school to send them.
I see.
Do you know, so this is one in the entire, from K through 12?
It's one that just chose to go to Johnstown because we offered it reciprocally. We offered it to them.
They also have the choice to go.
The others go to Wells.
Oh, okay, that's
So,
also-
yeah, you go to like, the younger kids will go to like Pleasant or.
Okay. They got more than one school educator.
Yeah, I think so.
This is where I do think, notwithstanding being good neighbors, value is, I think, not quite there, to leave it at 2601. So I would suggest we give consideration. I support Joelle's thought of moving this to the August meeting, but I would give consideration going to the full rate recommended by New York State.
Yeah, I mean, that would also be my recommendation if I can reach the superintendent. I'll have better information to you by August.
And I'd also be interested to hear where they pay Wells and BP,
Yes,
so it can be comparable.
I was just gonna ask the same thing.
I think both of those school districts are paying less per student.
What do you say, what's that based on?
And based on what I know what their tax levy is and the amount of students that are there. I always look at Broad Alton First School District, their numbers and stuff, I kind of compare them to us different times. Wells is different.
I understand. But their tax base is very different than ours. I mean, they have a lot of different factors going for it. I know we explained that before. But I think by comparison, that Broad Alton is definitely a school that we can compare ourselves to. But there are lots of different factors to figure out.
The one most similar.
Bountiful is probably more so. I think that that's just because of tax base and their land value, their income, their combined wealth ratio. But we should do a better comparison. That's okay.
Okay, so we're going to discharge item 15 for this meeting, Lorena, and we'll postpone that until the next meeting in August. Okay, item 16, tuition rates for non-resident students for 2023-24 school year. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve non-resident student tuition rates for the 23-24 school year as follows. A, district-to-district placement of non-resident students. The tuition rates are based on the New York State Education Department non-resident tuition rate formula, 2022 to 23 estimated rates. When the actual 23-24 non-resident tuition rates are available, refunds or additional charges are to be made in accordance with section 174.2A6 of the regulations of the Commissioner of Education as follows. Tuition charge for regular education students based on net cost per student. Full day K through 6 tuition for regular education pupil, $2,424. Grade 7 through 12 tuition for regular education pupil, $4,354. Tuition for students with disabilities who are eligible for public excess cost aid. Full day K through 6 tuition for special education pupil at $27,355. Grade 7 to 12 tuition for special education pupil, $29,285. Item B, parentally placed private tuition in accordance with BOE Policy 7131, the non-resident tuition rates for both regular education and special education students for the 2023-24 school year are as follows. And in accordance with the New York State Education Department non-resident tuition rate formula. Full day K through 6 tuition, $2,424. Grade 7 through 12 tuition, $4,354. Item C, special education students placed in BOCES programs and/or private special education programs. The actual cost calculation method will be used for purposes of billing non-resident tuition costs for special education students placed in BOCES programs and/or private special education programs. Okay, so with all of that being read aloud, I'm looking for a motion. Jen, second. Joelle? Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, thank you. So we have a possible executive session, subject to board approval. Looking for a motion to enter into executive session for the following purposes. That is discussing the employment history of a particular person. Do we have a motion? Oh, Joe, second? Well, all those in favor? Thank you. So we will convene to executive session. Where do we go for that?
We could probably just go across the other media center.
Easier for everybody.
Okay, Jen stepped out. She's back. Okay, so we'll reconvene at 7:29. Move into our consent agenda. In an effort to expedite the business of the Board of Education, but in no way meant to diminish the importance of each item, the consent agenda may be used for the items in this section. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any one board member. Items not removed will be adopted by general consent without debate. Any removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the board. So this is like a motion to approve the following items as a consent agenda. This would be section 4, A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, B, and C. Anybody wish to remove any of those items from the consent agenda? Can I get a motion? Well, second? March? Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. So we have action items. We'll start with second reading and adoption of revised policies. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent for the second reading and adoption of the following revised policies effective July 6th, 2023. These include policy 3110, school-sponsored media, and policy 5730, transportation of students. Can I have a motion? Art, second? Jen? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, second, establishing student school day for 2023-24 school year. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to set the student school day for the 23-24 school year as set forth on addendum number 5. Everybody have a chance to look at addendum number 5? Okay. Can I get a motion? Joelle, second? Will? Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. We have a cooperative bidding for cafeteria commodities for use in the Regional Food Service Management Program for the school year 2023-24. I'd like to get a motion. Jen? Second? Art? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Transportation purchase. This is to resolve that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the district treasurer and deputy treasurer to transfer $129,148 from the 2015 bus purchase reserve to the general fund budget for purposes of purchasing 2 66-passenger buses in accordance with the proposition approved by district voters on May 16, 2023. Can I get a motion? Well, second? March? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Transportation routing. So I'm going to read this in full just because of its importance. This is a motion. Whereas Board Policy 5730 governs the board approved transportation to be provided to district students. More specifically, that transportation will be provided to students in kindergarten who reside more than half a mile, students in grades 1 to 8 who reside more than 1.5 miles, and students in grades 9 through 12 who live more than 2.5 miles from the school they legally attend. And whereas to ensure efficient and economical use of district transportation, the board has studied the use of centralized pickup points within the district's limits and finds it appropriate to adopt such measures at this time. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Greater Johnstown School District hereby approves the use of centralized pickup points within city limits, commencing with the 23-24 school year, with any distance to a pickup point not to exceed the mileage ranges specified in Policy 5730. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the district providing transportation to and from one child care location in addition to or as an alternate for a child's residence where such transportation is provided regularly and on a consistent scheduling basis. Parents shall be limited to one additional transportation location per year, with requests to be made not later than April 1st, preceding the next school year, or within 30 days of establishing residency for new residents. Okay, so with all that being read, can I get a motion for that resolution? Joelle, second? Art? Okay, discussion.
So as I'm reading this, does that mean, so we are going to move to more like centralized pickups, but it still is only for the students
We're eligible.
who are eligible, not for all district residents?
Correct, right now, because that's what's able.
I have a couple questions here. What about the ones with multi-children in the family, like, but they might have a somebody in kindergarten and they live, say, a mile, so the kindergartner might be eligible, but the second grader, yeah.
We have bent those rules before,
Okay,
so we'll have to consider those. We have allowed that,
okay.
but
And
they're not going to be able.
okay, and then the other thing that I have here is, I know that we have the request for the additional childcare location.
Yep.
And it says no later than April 1st, but since we are putting this in place now, are we giving any type of leniency for this upcoming school year? And do we have that?
We've actually created a new form
Okay.
for the alternate drop-off.
Are we like allowing them until like what, September 1st or something along those
Yeah,
lines?
what
or-
we said
We
for,
actually put it out for the end of July.
Okay.
With community, we sent out parents for with the new form,
Okay,
because we have to have an opportunity to route the children.
right.
So we need that time.
my guess is that parents are not going to understand this totally the first time through. So we're going to have to be really lenient and work with them.
Yeah.
And we will. The idea is to keep students safe
Mhm.
and make a decision that, we can count on.
Yeah, because this is something new for, I think, a lot of parents in the district.
Sure. Well, it's a good benefit, but it becomes a safety issue when parents change their minds so often, and we try to work with that.
So going forward, you mentioned it's not able, but you're gonna move to that more broad policy
Not at this
now,
point, not at this point.
but in the future, do you see that happening? I mean, I think I'm just thinking about when we reviewed the efficiency study, the buses were not being used to their ultimate capacity, and I think that we really need to do that. I mean, I think it would go a long way to improving attendance and, so.
We just have to be prepared as a district, because city school districts are not required to pick up students, period.
Right.
We just have to be ready to assume the cost of that, because state ed is not going to, we have to report the ridership and the eligible students. So we're gonna suffer a loss in state aid if we, unless we can work with state ed. Alicia's been doing a lot of work on
Yeah,
this with state ed.
and honestly, and depending on, so we figured this is kind of phase one in the first year. This is a lot of change in 1 year that we're doing already, but I think once we have a good baseline of how our routes are recreated, because there's capacity, but there's also how we mix students depending on where they live to go to certain bus stops or our rural routes, also determines rateability. So I think in a year from now, when we're planning for the next school year, we're gonna be able to better judge that financial impact based on how efficient our routes hopefully are running, much better this upcoming year, and then we can bring that back to the board and say, look, based on our current routing, based on how it went this first year, this is kind of the aid loss that we're looking at, and then the board can make a conscious decision based on at least 1 year of performance in this new model.
And you were here, but I have found no records of the discussion that the administration might have had when they went to the different groupings and had shuttle buses.
Yeah.
So that sounds reasonable and obvious that we would be able to do that.
Right.
But there was also a financial implication to that
Right.
I can't find any record of discussion about, so we're working directly with state ed.
Okay.
So we just don't have all the answers yet. We don't know what that impact will be yet. So we thought we'd start with eligible students, and then we will be somewhat lenient. We're gonna work with parents, of course. I think it's the best thing to do. Not ideal.
I was hoping for something like that.
Yeah, we all are. We all are. In the end, we all are.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Abstentions? Okay. All right. Next item, board member attendance at NISBA Leadership and Education event. This is a motion to approve attendance by Board of Education member Jennifer Sponable at the New York State School Board Association's Leadership and Education event to be held in Albany, New York, July 28th and 29th, 2023, with the cost of such attendance to be at the school district's expense pursuant to policy 2320. I get a motion? Marge? Second? Will? Discussion? All those in favor? Okay, have fun. We have a green sheet item to add. This is action item 7, emergency transportation resolution. It reads, whereas the Greater Johnstown School District is faced with an unforeseen circumstance when it recently learned that HFM BOCES would not be able to provide transportation for the district's summer school for 2023, and whereas the district summer school begins and requires transportation to commence on July 10, 2023, which does not allow sufficient time for the district to competitively bid the required transportation runs. And whereas Education Law 305-14B permits a Board of Education to award an emergency transportation contract without competitive bidding not to exceed 1 month, and be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby determines that an emergency exists as would satisfy Education Law 305-14B, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent and or assistant superintendent to enter into the necessary emergency contract not to exceed 1 month with Brown SDA at a cost of $16,200. Resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Get a motion. Art? Second? Will? Any discussion?
I have a couple questions. So what was the reason for them not to be able to?
No drivers.
Okay. And so does that also affect other districts in our area?
No. Well, Gloversville may. Does it affect Gloversville?
It affected Gloversville this.
Yeah.
I just was curious, like, how much would we be paying our HFM BOCES for the summer sessions compared to the $16,000 that we have to pay?
I think it's comparable, and actually the quote we got from Brown STA was actually pretty low for 2 buses, so things were made out really well. Yep, this would include both our special ed students, and for our summer programming this year, it was kind of exciting. This was the first year we're also transporting our regular ed students back and forth to our summer programming, where historically we have not provided transportation for our regular ed students to attend summer programming. So to say that we were a little bit disappointed on hearing the news was to say the least, but at this point, it's just so important that we now have this transportation in place, for programming to begin on Monday.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Call the question to order. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a number of personnel items, and I'm curious, I don't believe anybody is here for these. Would it be appropriate to consolidate these into a consent agenda? Okay. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take item 14 out of that though. And so this will cover action items, personnel, items 1 through 13 and 15. 14 will be set aside. So can I get a motion to accept that consent agenda? Art, second? Well, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, for item 14, Dr. Crenshaw, we are going to look to reconcile some discrepancies we noted in here, and would like to take that up on the August meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay. So moving on to number 7, board discussion. First reading of new policy 5322, district credit card use. Does anybody have any questions about that policy as it's laid out? Okay. Complete annual conflict of interest form and turn into the district clerk. So if you're able to, please try to fill this out before you leave this evening and hand it over. So then we have board committees for 2023-24. So I'd like to recommend the following committee assignments for academic and extracurricular. Marjorie Klein, Jennifer Sponneval, and Ron Beck. For audit, budget, and finance would be David Demore, Arthur Schrum, and Marjorie Klein. For facilities, David Demore, Arthur Schrum, and William Stock. Personnel would be David Demore, William Stock, and Joelle Richardson. Does anybody have any disagreements with those assignments or requests for other assignments?
I would just ask, an academic and extracurricular, Dave, if you would recuse yourself, because the board president is ex officio member of every committee, but that would create a quorum, so just.
Oh, if I were on, if I
Yeah,
attended that.
Correct.
Got it, okay, yep. So I will do that now.
You can't come.
I can't. Okay, that's fair. So I will recuse myself from the academic and extracurricular committee for the school year. All right, so then the BOE representative to the professional learning committee for 2023-24, Marge Klein. And the BOE representative to the district-wide safety committee for 23-24 would be Art Schrum. And BOE representative to the district-wide wellness committee for 23-24 would be Jen Sparnable. School ambassadors for 23-24. Now this is something that we have done in past years. The pandemic kind of disrupted our ability to interface with our schools, our assigned schools. I would be interested in establishing this again so that board members can represent at these school functions that might occur. So I'll first ask, are there any preferences anybody might have for a particular school?
Knox? I'd say Pleasant for me.
I'll do work.
Knox as well.
Knox? Well, let me make you the high school. And I'll be the floater. So I would just ask Dr. Crankshaw, I know there is a district-wide calendar, but it can be difficult to keep pace with that. I wonder if on a monthly basis we can incorporate into our agendas just a quick rundown of things that might be planned for the month ahead, so that we can at least get some kind of heads up and plan for it a little bit. And for the record, it's not required that you be there, but if you can't be there for some of these events, that would be great. All right, so August 17th will be our next Board of Education business meeting at 6:30 p.m. here at the high school. And I think, are we comfortable in this room for board meetings?
So it was mentioned that this is one school site, this will actually be a classroom.
Oh.
So at that point, I don't know if we're in here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I remember we had board meetings in the in the cafeteria over there for a while. We just had to reconnoiter things. I don't think it'd be a problem unless we can't.
If it makes sense to do it in the lecture hall, so be it. It's not as comfortable because of the chairs and because of the acoustics more than anything. It can be difficult to hear people.
I think we can try it here if it doesn't work. for some
Or
reason.
what about the library even?
Would that be or not enough?
There's a lot more fixed furniture there. There's a little less open space here.
All right, let's see how it works once the school year starts. So for the 17th of August, we'll meet here.
These tables are super easy to move, and we're always moving and setting up anyway.
Okay.
On wheels.
It's these cloths.
Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
Just a question, it's concerning the committees and stuff. When are we gonna see that schedule?
It's done. It's done. I just want to make sure you were willing to do them first. Yeah.
So how about a motion to adjourn? Okay, well, second.